What's up, guys? So I wanted to do this video because I ordered this book on Amazon. Guys are familiar with TRACY TWYMAN Clock Shavings. So I just want to read. So there's a little spoiler alert. If you have not read this book and you want to, you should probably shut this video off. So, let me show you this. I was so curious to know why she named the book Clock Shavings. I thought it had something to do with time manipulation, but actually, the Swedish witches had a special rite, which was obviously intended to impress ignorant minds. They were given a little bag with a few shavings of a clock to which a stone was tied. They threw this into water, saying, "As the shavings of the clock do never return to the clock from which they are taken, so may my soul never return to heaven." And, you know, I don't believe in coincidences. And again, I had no idea why she named the book Clock Shavings, but you know, I always say that there's certain people here that are more grounded to, I don't want to use the word grounded. They don't want to leave this place. They want, their place is here. They want the money, they want the wealth, they want the power. And in order to do that, they have to perform rituals and mind manipulation and games and brainwash to us so that we don't get out either. So I did feel like this book had a place on my channel for that reason. Now, if you don't know who TRACY TWYMAN is, she's deceased, I believe, 2019. So she wrote a lot of occult books. She wrote books about the Prior of Zion. It's funny because the road that she started on was, she read Holy Blood, Holy Grail. And ironically, that is also the road that I started on. You know, the Da Vinci Code, everybody starts with the Da Vinci Code, and then it goes from there, right? So then, after I read the Da Vinci Code, I read Holy Blood, Holy Grail. I started digging deeper into secret societies. But it kind of ended because I didn't realize the rituals that were being performed until around, well, you know what? Honestly, I shouldn't say that. My son was trying to talk to me about this stuff. He, at only like 15 years old, my oldest son, who's now going to be 40, knew about all this stuff long before I did. And I'm going to say he really got into Bill Cooper around that time. And this is an extremely intelligent, a very high IQ individual. This was a boy who, his father died, was murdered before he was born. I was 18 years old and pregnant. And I always felt like he was the parent. The first thing that I noticed when I gave birth to him was that I knew who he was. It was very strange. I did not have that same feeling with my other children, which made me then realize that, oh, maybe I didn't have lifetimes with them, but I did with him. Very, very strange. And honestly, I could have lifetimes with my other children. I'm not sure. I think that's very, very common of reincarnating in the same families. But I know for sure that I had lifetimes with him. But anyway, he was talking about this stuff and about Satanism and SRA. And I was like, back then, totally like, what are you talking about right now? Anyway, TRACY TWYMAN, let's get back to her. So she got into the occult because she started reading about the Prior of Zion, and she was kind of like sort of gothy, very smart, and she put out a magazine publication called Dagobert's Revenge, which was the Merovingian king who was killed, and that's why she called it Dagobert's Revenge. You may hear several cats meowing, just saying, but the publication was about secret societies and the Prior of Zion and this keeper of this knowledge. Now, they supposedly, when the Templars were put on trial, they said to have like worshipped a skull with a number written on it, and then it was the head of John the Baptist. Some say it was Baphomet's, or they were conjuring Baphomet using the head of John the Baptist, and they worshiped John the Baptist, but then you come to find out that that actually wasn't true. Or it's just, there's just so much in this book, and it's highly recommended. So what she did was, she and her best friend, who she ended up marrying, Brian Albert, and other friends, mostly it was her and Brian doing these. They had a Ouija board, and they were talking to Cain, the son of Adam. And what I found really interesting with talking about Cain was he got into where the game of chess came from, which was the fall of Eden / Atlantis / the fall of him actually fighting against his own children for this throne. And they're called the Dohir Kings. And that is where the game of chess came from. It was this war over, and then again, you have to take what these beings say through a Ouija board with a grain of salt, because they also lie. But he said that he was the one that caused the flood, because it was the wrath of Cain, because everyone turned against him, and there were like 10 other kingdoms going against him. And that is where chess came from. It was created out of this war. And he said that the very first oldest board, and the very first, it was created in Afghanistan. And all this happened around the Persian Gulf. Atlantis sank into the ocean, but I don't want to get too much into that. But apparently Cain, what she found out was, because first she was talking to Cain, then she was talking to Baphomet, that Baphomet and Cain were the same being, but a different aspect of the same being. Really, really deep shit. So when they were talking to Cain, they got whatever information in Argeo, the Argean Sea. So this is where all this stuff, and that's what they called the game of chess. I'm probably saying it wrong, pronouncing it wrong. But Cain said, at one point that it was time for them to talk to Baphomet, which was the other aspect of him. And when they talked to Baphomet, her husband, in a dream, he did not like the Parker Brothers version of the Ouija board. So he basically went through her husband and allowed him to draw out a Ouija board that he wanted him to use. Now, the reason I find this really interesting is because there are people that have come out in occult circles, the people that practice Satanism, that said that they do not use the same Ouija boards that we do, and they think that our Ouija boards are a joke. They call them Christian Ouija boards. So this Ouija board was different. In fact, I am going to see, I believe she has a drawing of the Ouija board in here. I'm going to see if I can pull it up, and you'll see it's different than the Parker Brothers version. And my whole thing is, do not mess with this stuff. And that's one of the reasons why I did this video. So this is it. As you can see, it looks different from a traditional Ouija board. Now, when my son was, my oldest, was around 6 years old, he had asked for a Ouija board, and I was completely naive to this shit, okay? And I got him one for Christmas. I got my 6-year-old a Ouija board. First of all, there's really not many 6-year-olds that I asked for a Ouija board. But he was really into, like, horror. From my younger brother kind of got him into watching, like, horror movies when I wasn't around. And, you know, like me. And ironically, he is, which I don't do religion, but he's a Christian. And so that's him, and that's his life, and that's his business. But he asked for this Ouija board. It was under my Christmas tree. My neighbor, we lived in an apartment. We lived on the second floor. Neighbor upstairs, neighbor downstairs. Actually, at the time, this particular neighbor, the girl that lived upstairs was a girl I grew up with at that time. The neighbor from downstairs, who eventually moved upstairs after the other girl moved out, came upstairs on Christmas Day to see what my son got for Christmas. She also had a son, probably maybe 3 or 4 years younger than my son. And she came up and she saw it, and she goes, "What the hell's that?" And I said, "It's a Ouija board." She's like, "Who brought him that?" And I said, "I did." And she's like, "Why?" I said, "I don't know. He asked for it." She's like, "Get that thing out of here right now." And I'm like, "Why?" She's like, "Girl, never ever give that to a child or play with it yourself or dabble in it or anything." She's like, "Get it out of here." She's like, "I gotta live here too." So I'm not really sure. It's this really weird thing. We never opened the board that I can remember. We may have opened it and like took it out and put it, but we never played with it. And I don't know why. But it like kind of disappeared from my apartment. Now, my apartment was split. There was a staircase in the middle. My 2 bedrooms were in the back, in the front of the house, and my living room and kitchen and bathroom were in the back of the house with a little deck. And I shared a hallway between my bedroom and my living room area with the people upstairs and downstairs. Now, could she have come in and taken it and burned it? I don't know. I just know the board disappeared. I will say this, okay, while I did have it in my house, my son did suffer from sleep paralysis. Now, from the time he was, 1, 2 years old, he had night terrors. I mean, he would wake up screaming. He would sleepwalk, try to walk out the door. I caught him walking out the door one time. I mean, just constant night terrors. And then as he got older with the sleep paralysis and stuff like that. So, I'm glad that I never touched that board. And I'm glad mostly because she gave me a warning that stuck in my head. When I was in my 30s and I had my second set of kids, I was doing paranormal research. I was basically a ghost hunter. And that's when I learned the real lowdown on Ouija boards. Because we were going to all these houses that I didn't believe that they all had demons in them. I do actually believe that now, because the guy who ran it was South Jersey Ghost Research, David, his name was. And I just didn't believe it because I was still naive. I didn't realize you're going to these places and these things attach themselves to you. This one place that we went to called Burn Brain Mansion, look it up, in New York. After that, and we stayed there the night, I can't even begin to, that's a whole nother video. My life went to shit after that, and it was already shit. Okay, and I had 2 small kids. So, you know, these things are not to be messed with in any way. This woman, I'm more than halfway through the book. Supposedly she was driven mad. Her husband actually died 5 years before her. It was said that she was driven mad and she killed herself. So who was doing it? People on the outside? People in the spirit world? Probably both. Probably both. And I believe it stems back to this work, this stuff. And, you know, when you're 20 years old and you're doing this, you know, and I don't care how intelligent you are, you're opening up a door. You're opening a door. You're opening a spiritual door that stuff is not to be messed with. I mean, I did a video about the Abramelin ritual. And again, if you're summoning your guardian angel, why do you need to bring 5 demons from hell with them? Because it's just duality. They're all... That's what this place is, in my opinion. It's fucking duality. That's what the demiurge is. It's duality. It's both. It's good and evil. So, I don't believe that we come from a place that's like this one. I think where we come from, it really is love that we can't even remember because it's been so long that we've been there. And we have no knowledge of that in this body and in this place. No way. This is going to be really a prison if we get put onto computer chips. It's already a prison. Because this body, you know, yes, everyone's like, oh, talking about how bad that would be, where you really don't have control, right? Here we have a little bit more control. But it's pretty friggin' bad now. I mean, look at what happens to us. We're like, you know, look at what happens to us. This body rots and, you know, pain and suffering and just all the everyday running on the hamster wheel to keep the roof over our heads. You know, none of it is good. And I know people say count your blessings, and I'm not trying to sound ungrateful, but I like to look at this place for what it is. And it's pretty bad. And these people, these occultists, they do things to the most innocent. And that's all I'm going to say. So, anyway, she makes the board. They're conjuring Baphomet. And it's getting crazier and crazier. Because now they're doing spells. They're told to get people's blood and send it through the mail. If you look at videos of TRACY TWYMAN from, like, I believe, maybe like between after her husband died. There's some videos up there. She used to be on Coast to Coast all the time. I could not find any interviews with her from Coast to Coast. But my point is, she realized, and it's going to be somewhere in this book because I've listened to interviews with her, that this is not good. And she was a good person. She just, listen, and the thing is, sometimes you're called to do this work, which I believe she was, because you have that bloodline in you. And there's a lot of us that have dragon blood in us. I'm just going to say what it is. Okay? Maybe a watered down version or whatever. It doesn't mean that you can't get out of here, and it doesn't mean that you follow this path. Okay? The path of even duality is insane. I mean, no, I'm sorry. I reject all of those things in this place. So, I think that just from the research that I've done and just kind of like a download that, you know, I probably have some of that in me too. The Mind Unveiled just did an incredible video about the history of vampires. And what do you know? The dragon bloodline. Watch the video. It's great. But he will get into the dragon bloodline. These beings were dragons. That's what they were. So what it says is that, and I already knew this from Gnosticism, you could understand Gnosticism and you can read about it and accept it as truth, but it doesn't mean you go down the darker path. And that's what I was trying to say to, like, people who condemn Gnosticism, mostly Christians. So I think there's a lot to learn, and you don't throw the baby out with the water. So Eve apparently was raped by Yaldabaoth and had Cain and Abel. They were not Adam's sons. Lilith had demon babies with Adam. Seth is, and I'm sure there were other children as well, the one. He's the bloodline that, but even his bloodline got corrupt down the line. He's the bloodline that comes from Adam and Eve. And that's why there's Sethian Gnosticism, because it's that uncorrupted bloodline. Because Adam and Eve came from the hypercosmoi, right? They came from heaven, which pisses, you know, and more had more divinity in them than these demons, and that pisses them off. And that's why they want to ruin us. Well, oh, God wanted, you know, then what God? God wanted them to bow to us because we were his creation. What God are they talking about? They're not talking about the unutterable God, as I like to call this being. They're talking about Yaldabaoth, Lucifer, or whatever the hell you want to call them. I believe Yaldabaoth is Lucifer, is Yahweh, is, I don't know. I mean, so then what is Cain, and why was Cain able to cause the flood? Well, because he was the son of Yaldabaoth. Okay. Dragon blood. These seraphim angels, the fallen angels that created giants with women, were dragons. the seraphim were. You know, and then you have other insane, like, I mean, have you ever listened to the description of the angels? I mean, it's the four wheels, the cherubim, they don't look like us. You know, the one had the head of an eagle, the face of a lion, the face of a human. I mean, they were very, very strange and powerful beings. And I believe it started out with the Yaldabaoth, the 7 archons, the 5 demons of hell, and just all went from there. Lucifer is duality. Okay? It's both. It's good and bad. And that's the mind fuck. So, which brings me to, I've done videos about narcissism before, but I'd like to bring this up because they do they're like aliens, you know? They have no goodness in them. If you've ever gone out with or had a parent or a brother or a sister or something, if you've had dealings with a psychopathic narcissist, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. So, they do very evil things because they get copious amounts of narcissistic supply, fuel, however, whatever you want to call it. It's energy, and that energy sustains them, because without it, they're just like a shell. And it's a horrific way to have to live. And I actually do have pity for them. But they also will, they will do good too. They will do good for attention. They will do good to get fuel. They will make you laugh. They will treat you like you're up on the highest pedestal you can be on, because you're giving them that fuel. You're giving them that supply that they need, that energy. And I think that goes straight across the board for the model of Yaldabaoth, of Lucifer, of, you know, it's both. It's both. And the other thing with narcissists is, if they treated you bad all the time, you would just be gone, you know, within a couple months, right? So they gotta throw you the crumbs and do the good stuff once in a while, so you don't exit too early. And then in the end, they just completely hit you with all of the evil bombs. So I should do more videos about narcissism. I consider myself to be quite knowledgeable about how these people work, and they are like fucking aliens. But anyway, right now in the book, she is about to do some rituals, and I really think that this book, those sessions with that Ouija board that Baphomet created through her husband, is what ultimately led, unfortunately, to her demise. And, you know, I see a lot of people, and I was one of them, who didn't know the story, who really didn't get deep into the story, saying like, oh, they killed her. And that she was getting death threats. There were other people that she was working closely with that were getting death threats. And I'm not saying that outside forces didn't have a hand in it, but there were also spiritual things happening. And that's why I say, do not open the door. Do not dabble in these things. And protect your energy, because shit is getting really crazy, and it's about to get crazier. I don't know if you guys feel it every day, but you need to protect your energy now more than ever. And don't dabble with this shit. But I do find it fascinating, and I am going to continue to read the book. And I really wish that this hadn't happened to this woman. And I mean, she had kids, she had a family. And again, I'm not really sure the circumstances of her husband's death, but you know, it's just, there's no good that comes of dabbling with this stuff. So, I think I'm going to end the video now. I'm at 30 minutes. You guys have a good night. I'm sure the very soon to be satanic ritual that's going to happen in my living room called the Super Bowl is, I'm going to have to hide, like down here, is going to happen very soon. So, another occulted ritual, one of the biggest. Bye, guys.